The Clean Power Hour is brought to you by Continental Energy Solutions. I'm Tim Montague, your co-host. Today on the Clean Power Hour, zero death highways that are powered by solar. Green steel is an imperative for the energy transition. Yes. Tandem perovskite solar cell tech is coming, and size matters. Welcome to my co-host, John Weaver, the commercial solar guy.
Timothy, how do you do? How's your winter season starting to shape up? Hope all is well with you.
We've had a very mild fall here, so no complaints. No snow yet. I love snow. I can't wait to get my cross-country skis out and hit the trails around here. But yeah, it's fine. It's fine. And we have a ton of news, so we should get right into it, I think. Kicking off with some news from the commercial solar guy. You have started a new company or a new division?
New division at this point. At some point, it'll be a proper company, but Whaling City Solar. That is our new residentially focused solar company and small business, residential and small business. It's focused on the south coast of Massachusetts, New Bedford centered down into the Cape, Fall River. This project happens to be in Mattapoisett. It's about 30 kW. It's a rooftop. Those are Solaria modules, in-phase inverters, some snap and rack. And Adam Gent, he's running the division. And really what it came out of is that commercial solar guy kept getting resi deals, like one a month, and I would give them away. And I get a $200 commission. And it would piss me off because I know how much money those guys are earning. So I decided to just work some light residential stuff. And I posted a couple stories about a project or two. And a gentleman who lives right across the bridge from us, Adam Gent, he's a couple miles away. He said, hey, my company's furloughing everybody. Looks like we're cutting down, and I'd love to help you run your residential company. And a few months later, as things started shuffling out, we now got a resi company set up, and pretty soon it's going to be its own company. But for now, we're just getting all the pieces working. Got our first 2 or 3 systems completed, 7 or 8 signed, and so now we're doing some residential, and that's a good start. And that's our first project that's really done, really clean, really nice looking. And so I like the way the website looks too. We got a great logo, and whalingcitysolar.com if you want some resi solar on the south coast of Massachusetts.
Yeah, I have to say it's a beautiful website. I'm very finicky about design and the user experience, so I think you nailed it. I love that drone footage. I love how the drone just circles around the project, gives you some, the full view. It's really nice. I think you should use drones a lot in residential solar. For all the resi solar people out there, it's a very powerful way to show people what solar looks like, for commercial too, of course, but it's just more interesting when you've got all these eaves and angles, but good stuff.
The company was founded with a certain logic. The Whaling City, one of our links, we're calling it SeeThru Solar. And we're going to experiment with telling everybody exactly how the price breaks down. We're going to tell them what the components cost. We're going to tell them what the labor costs. We're going to tell them what our overhead is, what our profit is. And we're going to see how people react to it. In some places, I've read that people always want a deal. And if they don't get a deal, they're going to walk away. And that might cause an issue if we're too honest up front. But maybe there's enough people that are cool and smart and want to just get the straight cut and don't want to get BS. And so that's right there. I mean, that is a BOM that we're giving people of a project. And so we're just, thinking about being honest.
I think that's a great way to differentiate yourself. It's so unusual for contractors of any flavor to really share their pricing with their customers. And it's a great way to differentiate yourself. And Massachusetts is a very no nonsense culture. I think it will resonate with people in the Northeast. Frankly, it could work here in the Midwest as well, but you can always change it, right?
Well, yeah, there's that. That is true. I mean, it's a website, one checkbox, and boom, on to the next thing. So proud of Adam's done good work. He's got a good install up there. That's a nice looking system. It's right on the street, beautiful Solaria panels, and it's off and running. So let it go.
Right on. So moving on, we've got a story here about the very first solar road in the United States. I saw a story a couple years ago about a solar road in France, I think, which makes sense, right? Because there's a French connection here. What's the story?
Solar roadways, man. So first off, I just really wanted to say that because that's great. If you zoom in on that image that you see down there, you can just see those panels between the two cars. And there's like 7 or 8 panels. It's 1.3 kW, so it's a super small system. And yeah, I think it was either French and or the Netherlands that installed 1 or 2 solar roadways and found production to be exactly what we thought it would be. But it's still interesting, and it's still going to get tested, and it's still going to get pushed. And maybe it would only be an architectural thing that looks cool and shiny and shows off some environmental cred, so that people, because when you install a solar rooftop on a commercial structure, nobody sees those panels ever. They disappear. But if you put some solar panels on the sidewalk coming up to the building, maybe people will be like, hey, what's up with those panels? They'll be like, oh yeah, we put them in when we did our big solar system. Or maybe they will scale in price, and maybe we will figure out how to make solar powered sidewalks and solar powered parking lots. Maybe not roadways. I don't know. It's a tiny system that doesn't mean much. And I'm a weirdo techno optimist, so I think every idea might work, but I like that they're doing it.
Yeah. We have to experiment with this. Buildings and roads together make up 6% of the land in the United States. I don't know what the percent is for just roads, but obviously there's a lot of real estate in roads and parking lots. My issue is that it's very expensive. It's probably not durable enough to really go on a very frequently used road. Because when I look at frequently used roads, they require a lot of maintenance. They get beat up a lot. But for a parking lot, or I don't know what this is exactly in front of this Curiosity Lab, which is some kind of an incubator, which is cool. And this is the zero death highway story also, which is, when you dig into the story, it's they have some EV chargers and an EV research laboratory here where they're designing highways to be autonomous vehicle friendly. And once we have true level 5 autonomous vehicles, they are 90% safer than human driven vehicles, because the vehicles can talk to each other, and they're just faster computers than the human brain, right? We are imperfect calculators, and we make mistakes more often than computers. Eventually, today's self-driving is not there. We're barely, I would say, at level 3, honestly. I mean, I turn on my self-driving on my Model Y, John, for a few minutes, and then I get irritated with it because it wants to do something wonky. It wants to slow down when I don't want to slow down, or it freaks out and turns itself off. But anyway, the zero death highway will be a wonderful invention once we get AVs.
I like what they're doing in Georgia with their EVs, with their highways, with their experimentation. It's an interesting area. I'm glad that it's being done in the Southeast United States instead of just in California or Arizona and the West Coast, where things happen. I don't know what's going to happen with these solar roadways. And the biggest thing I wonder about is if you were going to build a solar roadway and and then cover it with snow and then drive over it with a plow. It's hard. It's hard for me to believe in it. I did see something interesting happen when China installed their solar roadways a few years back. Somebody literally stole 2, 3, 4, 5 of the panels out of the road overnight. And I think it was just some sort of competitor trying to learn what this company had done because they saw a big opportunity. So that made me happy. It's just, it was nice enough to steal. That says something about it. And somebody had to work hard at that theft too. So
I'll
we'll
say,
see. Yeah.
there's many easier solar panels to steal than one out of the roadway.
Yes. Yes.
Oh my Lord. There was something else I wanted to say, but I forget now. So let's move on. gigawatt scale tandem PV cell output by 2022. And there's two stories here about tandem cells, I think, or
Yes.
related technology. Um, and I really appreciate that you're hardcore into PV tech. You're much more into it than I am, much more knowledgeable. So bring it on. We want more and better technology. If it'll work. So what's the story here?
So first off, you see the author of this article right here, Eric Wessoff. He's the executive editor at PV Magazine USA, and he is ready to throw down money to say no. We will not have 2 gigawatts of tandem PV capacity by the end of 2022, and he talks about it in this article. And Eric Wessoff, he's I like to chat with him on Twitter, and of course, I used to write for PV Magazine, and so he pushes back. He's a little more conservative in his how things might grow. I'm a little more optimistic. Maybe reality's in between. I hope I'm right. I hope that we have 2 gigs of tandem cell output. So tandem cell is pretty much a silicon base with a perovskite layer on top of it. That's what's going on these days for tandem. And one of the most possible real tandem cells going on is the Oxford PV tandem cell that they think, oh, it's right there on your screen.
Yep.
Their factory in Germany hypothetically should be up right now and making cells and going through testing. When I spoke with them in the spring, they were installing hardware. Everything had been mostly delivered and they were moving forward, and they were about to make the top layer of the cell and then sell that to the person who had the right machines in Asia. And I think it was REC Group in Singapore with their heterojunction facilities. And so, will we have 2 gigs of 26% product by 2022? I think so. I think we're going to have 2 gigawatts of tandem silicon solar cells, and they're going to be in the 26-27% range for a solar panel level. And that's 2 years.
So let's back up a little bit. Perovskites are a novel technology. They're mostly in the laboratory. One of their challenges is that they're lower efficiency. One of their challenges is that they use lead. Lead is a toxic metal. And I would hate to see a bunch of lead going into my solar fields and then into potentially landfills. But maybe they can transcend the lead issue with perovskites. I don't know. Have they done that?
So first off, your standard solar panels contain lead.
Yeah, but not throughout the wafer.
It's within the encapsulant though, so it's there. It's within the product. The perovskite lead is minimal from everything I've read. The amount of it and the way that it would get into the environment, it just doesn't work that way. Like when you read about how lead would have to be ground out of the solar cells and how the processes that would have to occur to lead toward lead leaching into the environments using a perovskite type product, it just doesn't occur. It's the same type of settling that we have with standard solar cells, to the best of my knowledge.
Yeah.
And we can delve into it, but I think we're beyond that issue. The efficiency issue, perovskites are gaining on solar silicon really, really close. But
Well, they're gaining on cadmium telluride. Isn't cadmium telluride the established thin film technology that First Solar uses?
Well, perovskites aren't a thin film. Perovskites they are applied maybe like certain thin films.
Not a thin film? Not a
Well,
thin film? Isn't that like the whole thing? Like you can put them on anything. You can put them on plastic. You can put them on
maybe.
curved
I guess
surfaces.
that's a good point. I mean, they're going to use roll-to-roll printing with perovskites, so maybe they are considered a thin film. How they're applied, I'm not exactly sure. I mean, they're like vapor depositions. I've seen perovskites get mixed in front of me in the lab and like applied via paintbrush, which was really neat. Once I was at the NREL lab in Colorado, and I got
Yeah.
a nice pour, and so it was cool. So
But so you're taking traditional silicon and sandwiching it together with a perovskite, and so that way you're theoretically getting greater efficiency overall, right, than
absolutely.
one of the other technologies. And that does make sense, and it gives it credibility that Meyer Burger, as you pointed out, Meyer Burger is the machine that builds the machine that makes solar panels, right, or solar cells. So the fact that they're investing in Oxford PV is very telling and gives it credibility. I happen to be with your colleague Eric Wessoff at PV Magazine that this is gonna lose, but hey, you got to try, right? I mean, hell, there's people that think Tesla's going to lose, so I think it's a lower gambit to say that this is going to lose than many other things. But anyway, I like it. I like the experimentation if it works, and if it goes commercial, which they're claiming as early as next year, right? Or 2 years from now.
Yeah, so Oxford PV says they're going to have 250 to 500 megawatts of capacity ready to sell starting in Q1, and that it should be scaling. Well, not starting in Q1, but starting the process of selling the chips cells in Q1. So months away. And then by mid-year, we should be at 250 to 500 megawatts coming out
Yeah.
of Oxford PV selling their perovskite tandem to somebody. And really what they're selling is this these cells that they make, and then the machines to attach them to the already existing silicon solar cells. And that's kind of what the next story is about, is how that's going to work. And I just covered a research paper. I'm going to write an article on this at some point. But so that specific cell, so I just broke down the research paper, but this is by Fraunhofer, an analysis looking at the cost of different types of tandems, where you have perovskite on the top and then all these standard module types as the bottom type of cell, and what types of efficiencies and what the costs are. And this is the cost of the product. So you can see the silicon bottom cell on the left. You can see the module cost on the right. If you close this and then scroll up, I believe, to the prior slide in the Twitter stream, you'll see, maybe you got to go down one, pardon me. Down a little bit more. Well, maybe it's up one more. Let's go up. So we're close to it. We're right there. The one to the right. Look at that image on the right. Right there, that image. No, down. Nope, not that one.
That's the one I was on.
Close.
Oh, there's two images.
Yes,
Got it.
perfect. So the image right there shows the efficiency potentials in the lower right hand box. And you can see where PERC, TO Perks, TopCon, Future TopCon, and Silicon Heterojunction, which is what REC Group does. You can see the potential efficiencies upwards of 31%. And I've seen other products saying 33, 34, 35. So that's where these products are going. This is a perovskite. This is a model. These products don't exist, but these are models of perovskite as the top layer with various types of silicon current products. And that's the logic. We're going to take our current products and we're going to scale them, and we're going to see how we're going to use them. And, we're going to see. I hope I'm right and Eric and you are wrong.
My goal is to be less wrong, as Elon Musk likes to say. We're all wrong, but be less wrong. Well, we have another wafer story, which is related somewhat, and that is about the size of wafers is getting larger. When we had Tristan on from PVAL a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about all these larger wattage modules that are coming out. Here's a photo of Trina's Vertex modules that they're rolling out in North America in 2021, starting with a 550, I think, and then going up to 600 plus. One of the ways they're achieving this is with 210 millimeter wafers. Okay. And now there's some analysis, LCOE, long-term cost of energy, or Yeah, LCOE is used different ways, but anyway,
Levelized,
levelized
levelized
cost.
cost
Yeah.
of living. Yes.
Levelized cost of energy, showing that if you do have a larger wafer, you will have a lower LCOE. And, I don't think it's rocket science, but it's just cool to see comparing 166 millimeters to 182 to 210 and how that actually plays out. And so you see, manufacturers like Trina going after this 210 architecture, and it's like the batteries, right? Tesla decided, no, first principles teach us larger cells are going to be overall cheaper. And that's basically what this is saying, is it not?
Yeah, I remember reading about from Longi about 3 years ago about them increasing the cells by 3, 4, 5 millimeters and showing savings and said, here's our logic. And this was when they moved from like 155 to 158. And within that document, they also talked about some weird solar cell that was 166 millimeters. I was like, wow, that's the future, man. And that was like 2 years ago. And then suddenly,
Yeah.
bam, 210. And it's like, oh, we're going to do it totally different. And it does make sense from what I've read. This sizing of the overall product, it actually lines up with the global computer chip wafer chip size, and that wafer size is moving bigger itself as fabrication facilities around the world upgrade and they get better at making large silicon chips. So this is the solar industry catching up with other very large industries, and it might benefit us in that kind of way, in that we'll get cheaper prices. And the cells themselves will get cheaper before we even consider the balance of system, how the solar project drops by 3.5%. So I like this movement, this evolution in these cells, and it lines up with the prior two things. Are we going to have tandem cells, a gig or two by 2022? What type of tandem cells will we have, if we have any? And now, how big will they be? Where all the buttons are being pushed. And what's neat is that the industry, I think, is big enough where you could have 10 gigawatts of tandem cells, 20 gigawatts of 166s, 50 gigawatts of 182s, 50 gigawatts of 210s. And each of those are industry large enough that they can scale on their own and do a lot of research to drive their technology. And if they do drive that, if they each have their own thing, we're going to get some fine-tuned, sharp hardware analysis as we continue getting better at this game, because we're still learning. We're going to triple and quadruple our annual volumes in the next 10, 15 years. So there's a lot of learning to go.
Yep. And the long and short of that is that with the larger wafer, you can get 3.5% cheaper solar energy. So a percent's a percent. And I think we're going to see all of the manufacturers going to larger wafers. But let's go to the EV story. We have a story about Aptera. And I was not familiar with Aptera. I'm sure they've been doing their thing for a while, but they've launched a very slick EV that is supposed to be super long range and also solar powered. It has solar panels integrated into the roof of the vehicle. You can get 45 miles of range. Look at that thing. It's like an airplane with no wings. And I think this has legs. Personally, I think it is a thing. You see some of these hybrid three-wheel vehicles, right, that are more like motorcycles. I can't remember the name. Arcimoto is
Okay.
also making a lot of headlines, right, with their and this is in that vein, although I don't know, is this a motorcycle or a car?
I don't know. You close the doors and you sit down inside during the rain. That'd be the big thing for me.
Yeah,
You're self-contained, so it feels like a car to
yeah,
me.
yeah. And Arcimoto, you're not fully enclosed. Maybe that's the one of the deltas, but so I don't know what this is. Commercials. Um, there's the solar panels,
Yep.
and the headline is a little deceiving because you can't get $1,000. You can't get 1,000 miles of range with the $26,000 version. That's a more expensive version that gives you that 1,000 mile range. But, um, my old ice engine Camry got 450 miles to a tank. So I don't think you need 1,000 mile range. You need 300 to 500 miles of range. Um, I get 280 miles of battery range on my long range Y if I'm just charging it to that 90% mark or whatever it likes to charge to. The real world, as we were talking in the pre-show, your car will say, okay, Tim, you have 280 miles of range, but then when you actually drive it, you're going to get less than 280 miles of range because you don't drive like a robot, driving exactly the speed limit and accelerating slowly, etc. I drive a little bit like a madman, honestly, and it's fun that way. And but I get less range. So if I'm trying to hypermile, then I have to be very careful. Holy smokes, though, this is a streamlined vehicle.
Yeah.
Fly or die. What do you say about the Aptera?
Well, it's been out there for a little while, first off. So this car has existed. This is its newest refresh, probably with these really awesome solar cells integrated into the structure. Um, I think it may sell some. It may sell enough to keep the business going. I really like that they have a $26,000 EV with a 250-mile range and 45 miles of charging potential, because 6 days out of 7, I drive less than 45 miles. But then once or twice a week, once to twice a week, somewhere in that range, I will drive to a site, or longer drives, 150 miles, 200 miles in a day. And then I'll use the battery a little more. But in the next days, I'll add back mileage and just make sure I park it strategically in the sun. And that's pretty cool. Those are probably real high efficiency solar cells. Like,
Yeah.
we've seen 25 to 30% efficient solar cells, 22 to 25, 27% efficient solar cells from nice manufacturers on some European solar cars. So I think that's coming. That 40 to 45 miles of range per day, maybe for a bigger car like a Model Y, it's only 30 miles. But if you were to paste our Model Y, like all that smooth rooftop body with some bifacial solar cells, um, that would be pretty sweet. Like if I could just park my car outside and add 10, 15 miles a day, 20 miles a day, I would be really happy with that. So I think that's really the neatest feature. The little weird car is cool. People don't buy too many of those. I mean, people buy giant vehicles. This is like the inverse of what people buy. So
Yeah.
I will see.
This this car is 2.5 times more efficient on a mileage basis. It gets 10 miles per kilowatt hour. My Model Y, according to my calculations, gets 3.73 miles per kilowatt hour. And so that is the difference. It is a much more streamlined, lighter, simpler, much more streamlined. And it truly is a George Jetson vehicle, if that reference means anything to anybody out there still. But
I tell you that if that thing gets 3x, 10 miles per kilowatt hour, that's like what are we talking? That's like an equivalent of like a 700 mile per gallon plus car, something like that. That's not trivial. That's pretty
well,
awesome.
aren't we getting 100 miles? Isn't the rating of the Model Y about 100 miles
Yeah,
equivalent?
yeah, so there's two ratings, and I always go toward the second one. So the first one is your energy rating efficiency. So yes, so the Model Y is somewhere in the 114, 116 EPA mile per gallon rating for highways, and then like 130-ish for local. But then I've done some research on the emissions of the Model Y. And so when you charge a Model Y in the Northeast, you get like 200 to 300 miles per gallon equivalent of emissions because of how clean our electricity is. So if you plug that car and you charge it in the Northeast, then your emissions are like almost nothing, because it's like a 700 mile per gallon emissions car at 10 kWh. And if you charge it via solar, then your emissions are zero. And that's really, really interesting. Now, as we say that out loud, every solar mile that car extracts from the sun is zero emissions driving. That's pretty cool. I want to see some solar panels. I want to see a 400K watt solar panel on the top of my Tesla Model Y. It's got the beautiful space for it. I don't know why it's not there. It's worth 20 miles. 20 miles a day is useful. I'd pay a few grand for that.
Yeah, and doesn't Tesla offer a solar roof on some of the higher end vehicles, the Model S?
I don't think so. We can find that out real fast, but I don't think so. Elon has
They
said
they have at some time. I don't know if it's still a thing, but they have.
they're,
Um,
they're talking about it with the truck. They're talking about making that back bed that pulls up the cover for the bed into a solar panel because it's just really big and square and it just makes sense. So they're going to do something. There's going to
yeah,
be
except
solar
that thing rolls up too, so I don't know how that's going to work. But
ingenuity.
well, I have a reservation for 2 Cybertrucks. That's going to be my cyber fleet. Um, that's my retirement income, baby, the cyber fleet. Well, we should probably move on. We've got a story here about green hydrogen. I do think green hydrogen is going to be a thing. It may not happen as quickly as we want or need it to. But apparently, the steel industry produces 7 to 9% of our carbon emissions annually. Okay. And we use a lot of steel because steel is a wonderful building material. It's super strong, super durable. So, generally speaking, larger buildings, commercial buildings, and certainly all high rises are built with steel. So, the question is, how do you make steel more climate friendly, right? And some folks in Sweden, and probably other places. I don't know. This is the story that caught my eye, but sorry.
Multiple places out there doing it.
Yeah, they have a pilot making steel from green energy and hydrogen instead of coal. And you know, there are 6 million people worldwide working in the steel industry. First of all, big industry. That's a lot of people. That's 2 Chicago's worth of people. And this city in Luleå is known as the Steel City. They make 2 million tons of steel slabs every year here. And so, anyway, um, they are now, I mean, at its roots, okay, you traditionally are burning fossil fuels directly in the process. It's not just the heat, but it's the chemical process of making the steel that requires carbon or coke. And so now they're experimenting with new chemistries and new ways of creating that heat energy to in this case in the form of green hydrogen, right? So hydrogen burns, and you can make hydrogen by splitting water. We have tons of water. The earth is 70% covered in water. So I think it's a thing.
The large steel manufacturers have been talking about this hydrogen for industrial processes because the hydrogen can fit there from a price competition standpoint. And there are other industrial processes that need to be attacked if we're going to work through our emissions challenges. And this is one of them. 10%, 9 to 10%. I didn't even know it was that high. That's really high. That's a huge number if we can remove the coking process, the coal release. I was reading an article about aluminum this weekend, and it's a much smaller percentage. It's 2%, but it's 2% of the world's total emissions. And an interesting piece is that, per this article I'm looking at here on PV Magazine, 71% of the emissions come from electricity that's needed in aluminum manufacturing. So if we can green the electricity portion of aluminum manufacturing, we can drop emissions 71% right there. And, we start looking at the direct carbon emissions. That's probably similar to the coking, the processing that goes on in steel. We can work on that too. But this hydrogen thing going into the steel, it really interests me because if we can clean that steel up and motivate the hydrogen into a big industry, a large industry globally. This gives hydrogen a continual working footing so that it can build up and become a more significant thing. Like, batteries were first driven by your cell phone and your laptop, and now they're getting driven by your cars. And us in the solar industry are significantly benefiting from your car needing a battery. If we in the solar industry could significantly benefit from your steel needing hydrogen, then wow, what another interesting little mutual beneficial development. And I think that's going to be necessary to bring hydrogen forward from the stuff I've read, because hydrogen is going to be real expensive compared to electricity, no matter what, just because it's so relatively inefficient. You have to use electricity to make the hydrogen.
Yeah.
And so, with that, it's gonna have to fight. And I letting it get a chance with this steel. One, we clean stuff, and two, we give it a chance to fight in an expensive market spot. That's good for hydrogen. So I like this steel cleaning thing going on.
I think there's also experimentation with concentrated solar power, right? Where you shine a bunch of mirrors in a dish pattern around a tank that of molten salts, right? That stores the heat energy, and then you can use that heat energy for industrial processes. I don't know if that's enough heat energy to make steel, but I know that that's something that we're working on. It's not cost effective, like you said, with solar PV for electricity generation, which is why we've seen CSP. So CSP, no, what is the acronym for this solar thermal technology?
If it's for the purpose of industrial
CSP,
process,
concentrated solar power. Yeah.
yeah, it's still CSP.
Yeah.
And I've heard about that. The Gates Group has one of those
Yes.
CSP things they're working on, and
Yeah.
it's interesting. These industrial processes, they're 20-30% of emissions. So we got a lot of work to do there and figure out. And a lot of people are going to make a lot of money making those machines. So
Definitely.
it's interesting to watch.
Definitely. And all right, so we're moving on here to the story. Oh, you found a really cool video about a Viridian installation. Viridian was a company we mentioned, I don't know, last week or the week before last, right? Dutch company?
If I happen to be on your podcast, then there's a good chance Viridian might get mentioned every other week, because I just think their product is so neat. So I'm certain that it was Viridian. If we're yeah, and I think they are Dutch. And really, they have a standard 270, 280 mono panel, just a nice efficient panel that's kind of dark. And what their magic is the edging of it. You can see them putting down all that stuff around the edges of the panels, and
Yeah.
that's what seals them together. And then you just assemble this thing like some Legos. And in Europe, you have that substructure, the wood substructure. You don't have to put down plywood. Yeah, last week we showed panels that were on fire, and the reason they were on fire is because they have to go through testing for when a house burns. And so that's what this product was that was burning last week, is related to these materials.
Yeah.
And it's just, you can see those little clips right there where you see the pieces going in, you can see the chunks. It's really interesting to see this product getting installed. I've never done one. I think they're going to look beautiful on some homes. People are going to like them. It's
Yeah,
a
I'm with
myth.
you. I think this building integrated photovoltaics is definitely a thing. And I'm not surprised to see, I mean, obviously Tesla's doing it with their roof tile. They're not quite doing this with their crystalline cells, right? They're just taking a more standard approach with their solar panels that everyone else is. So this is kind of,
It's
have you
different.
done a cost comparison
Different angle.
between Viridian and the Tesla solar roof?
No, I've never seen the Viridian pricing, so I don't know what it's going to cost.
Yeah.
The Tesla Solar Roof, I think people are going to be surprised. Tesla Solar Roof is $2.85 a watt. That's what they sell it for, to the best of my knowledge. I think we haven't realized what the real price is yet, because we haven't seen that many installs. So the Tesla solar roof itself is $2.85 a watt, and then the Tesla tiles, roof tiles. Yeah, that's the clips for that Viridian product. And Tesla roof tiles are like $7 a square foot, which is just an expensive roof. But this is how that Viridian clips together. This is where all the pieces come. And there's a few pictures there, and you can just see it's a mechanical assembly with teeth and rubber and metal pieces that click together and wick the water away and make sure no water gets down in there.
Yeah. And honestly, if this is cheaper than a Tesla solar roof, I would go for this. I don't think the aesthetics are that much different. The roof tile is a very aesthetically pleasing product, but it is also a super premium product. And so time will tell.
Yep.
I mean, it's a spectrum, right? We have uh, a large wealthy population, and then we have everybody else. And, so there's going to be premium products for the wealthy few, and then there'll be more mainstream products for everybody else. And it's going to be a spectrum. All right. European electricity demand 2x with planned hydrogen electrolyzer capacity, annual PV capacity. Ooh.
Yeah, big numbers, big numbers. And I really wanted to show off that chart that's on the next article right below this one. But this article really, I just wanted to show it off because it showed Europe scaling to 44 gigawatts of solar, which is a huge volume of solar. Prior weeks we've talked about how the US would scale up in big numbers and how globally we'd scale up in big numbers. And I thought this 44 gigawatt number was something, especially since it talks about this being part of the hydrogen scale up. And this was associated with the green steel. And if we move our manufacturing, our industrial processes, we're going to need more solar. And they're McKinsey, who's just a consultant group, they see significant solar coming to Europe. And I like seeing Europe growing again with solar, like it was back when I first started in the industry back in 2008. Italy and Germany and Spain, Europe was the hot spot for solar, and it was just neat. Now we got China growing, the US, Japan's coming again, and Europe. Man, we're just gonna have just so much solar globally getting installed, and I just wanted to show off that volume. 44 gigs is just a lot of volume to be to get deployed anywhere, and hopefully that's going to be Europe.
The Europeans, and I forgot to mention this in the Swedish story, the Scandinavians and the Northern Europeans have all set targets for being net zero. In the case of the EU, their target is 2050. And, I laud them for these goals. We have to be more explicit about the transition if we're going to actually achieve a meaningful, timely transition. We're 10 years behind.
U.S. electricity is actually one of the leaders in terms of progress. The UK, I think, is up there as well. The U.S. and UK. That's electricity. We've got a lot of other work to do. So we're moving. We are moving. That's without a doubt. We got to move a lot more though.
Another European story here, 20 gigawatt European solar
This is just
manufacturing.
related to this is just related to the prior one. The European groups are thinking they're going to push 20 gigs of domestic manufacturing, and that's real interesting when you compare it to the 44 gigs that they see in 2030. It's like, okay, the Europeans might want to supply 50-ish% of their annual domestic volume with high quality heterojunction, high efficiency products. So, and this is, the Meyerberger group that I love with their high efficiency, tandem, heterojunction, beautiful solar cells. So I thought those two articles sitting next to each other in terms of gigawatts of capacity numbers made good sense to just think about comparatively.
Yep. All right. Well, we have time for one more. You want to do one more? You want to do the big international consultants or something else here?
Let's finish on our solar propaganda. Let's do that one. The safest, cleanest forms of electricity.
Okay.
I think this is a nice little chart to end the day on. And it's really, you zoom in on that math, on that little image there, and you get to see something real clear. You see two things. You see emissions per kilowatt hour, and you see deaths as a result of. And nuclear, wind, solar, and hydro mostly are really just all set apart. Hydro gives off some methane because of rotting weeds and stuff when you have large vats of water sitting around. So there's something there. But when we compare it to the things up above, coal, we're talking 1,230 times more deaths from coal than from the same amount of electricity from solar. 1,230 times more deaths. That's just absurd. I mean, it's absolutely absurd. Oil's the same. Gas. I mean, gas is infinitely cleaner than coal, and it's infinitely dirtier than solar. And it's just so amazing what the difference is between hydro, nuclear, wind, and solar, those four versus everything else that's making energy, making oil, making electricity and energy in this world. And we got a lot of work to do for those sources to scale. Nuclear is up there at 20% of electricity, but everything else has a lot of work to do. It's got to get going.
So why do you call it propaganda?
I just like it. I just like saying it's propaganda.
Oh, okay.
These are facts. These are hardcore facts, but I like to call it propaganda because it sounds funny. And I'm a sales guy. Sales guys have propaganda.
All right. Yeah, I love those numbers. And it really does make you think, and it makes me feel very good about being part of the energy transition and promoting the energy transition. It truly is about saving lives today, not only saving lives in the future, because truly we are screwing future generations with climate change. But we're going to save a bunch of lives today every time we clean the grid. So every solar cell you install, every solar panel, every solar project, every wind project, you're saving people's lives. On that note, John, how can people find you?
Commercial Solar Guy. Type that into Google. We're on Twitter. We have, of course, a website. We're on Instagram occasionally, on LinkedIn as well. But Commercial Solar Guy. We build where, hey, that's the website. That's a little video of me. We can be your general contractor. We can be your consultant. A lot of different ways that we can help people move forward with solar projects. So just type in Commercial Solar Guy and you will find me on the internet.
And you can find me on Twitter at TG Montague. Please follow me. And you can find all of our content here at cesnrg.com/videos. That includes all of the solar podcast interviews and then all of the clean power hours. Today is episode 23, which will publish tomorrow on December 9th. And so check it out. We very much want to hear from you. Please give us a thumbs up, like us, share with your friends, and subscribe to the channel so that we can get more people involved in the energy transition and the solar industry. And with that, John, I will say, let's grow solar and storage.